Hello and good afternoon. My name is Martin Cowart, and welcome to Noonday Meditation and Contemplative Prayer Power Hour, where we've been gathering in this online sanctuary almost every weekday for about a year to love and support each other through this pandemic. And it has been a rock in my life, and I know it has been for some of you. So thank you so much for joining me on these daily reprieves, if you will, to sort of take a break from all of the trouble, all of the problems, all the work that we're doing to get us through this difficult time. And while we've still got more to go, so we're not giving up yet. We're still here for each other, but we're at least seeing some space in our lives for a new, brighter tomorrow. And so I want us now begin to think about, well, how do we use what we've learned, and how do I use what I've learned, and how do I teach you what I've learned about myself and about the world and the work that I do, particularly in the world of money and money solving problems. And I'm a prosperity coach and a spiritual teacher. And what I do is I have something called the shadow work method, where I incorporate both shadow work and contemplative prayer into a program, if you will, for teaching people how to solve problems and create wealth for themselves. And that's what we do here. So you're going to notice I'm going to be focusing more now on what do we do with this contemplative practice? How do we actually put it into our lives in a way so that as we begin to build and recreate a new world grounded in love and prosperity, after going through this year of pure dark hell, how do we put that into some valuable use for ourselves? How do we actually begin to use it? And I want to talk a little bit today about the three principles for solving any problem. In their spiritual principles, grounded in sort of spiritual wisdom, and you're going to see it's what we do is the technique is contemplative prayer, is centering prayer, what we do here every day. But I want to break it down into the various components of it, so you can have a better sense of the intention sometimes behind the prayer, because we might be having a difficult time during the day, like I did this morning. And I'm going to give you the sort of the logic behind all of this. And if you're joining me, I'm going to ask you, please just say hello in the chat so that I know you hear. I just see numbers on the screen going through StreamYard, and I don't know who you are, and I like knowing who you are. I like the relationship we have. So if you just type in and say, hello, I'm here. And if you have any questions, please put those in as well, because those are all great for me. I want to have more dialogue as we possibly can. But I want to start with a really simple story to explain the spiritual principle behind what I'm going to teach you today. Those three steps, and that is, we have two minds. We have our sort of ego thinking mind, which is often, oh, there you are. I'm so glad you're here, Audrey. It's great to have you here. I mean, just always makes my heart sing. If it's just you and me here together every day at noon, then that's fine. Anybody wants to join us, that's great. But knowing you're here, it just makes me feel good. So thank you for being here. I appreciate that. So we have two minds. We have the fear-driven egoic mind, which is just the binary brain, and it's brilliant. I'm not putting it down. It's a brilliant and it works. It's a binary system, meaning it's always comparing and contrasting, and it's a memory system. It's not a creative system. It only remembers what we put into it, and it does a good job of that, and it remembers life experiences, and it's how we learn, it's how we grow. So we need that binary brain, that the human mind, that brilliant human mind that we have. We need that human mind to help us navigate through the world, to look out for things that could be dangerous, to remember how to get home from the grocery store. We need that brain. So it's not about the brain being bad. It's just that this is the brain, but it just only has one type of function. And one of the things that it does really well is it alerts us to fear. And it can alert us to fear either by something that in the current situation is triggering an old story. So we think, oh, but be careful. Last time I put my finger in a fire, I got burned. Don't do that again. Or maybe the last time I had a conversation with a stranger, or there was a time I had it. So I'm careful when I talk to strangers. I want to find out more about them before. So it's an alert system. But fear is its major alert. Okay. The problem with fear is this: we cannot. It intentionally shuts down the creative aware mind so that we can act, we can respond. Okay, so we cannot, and it's like and the fear is telling you, stop, you got a problem, you need to look at here. Stop, you got a problem, you need to look at. But the thing about it is, with the fear up there and alerting us to the problem, we can't find the creative solution. We need to go into a higher level of consciousness, what we're going to call the creative aware mind. Sometimes I call that infinite intelligence. We can just call it God. We can call it reality. There is a higher, much higher. Hey, Tanya, it's so great to hear you. See, I'm going to give you some great tips that you can actually use in your business today. So stay tuned. This is going to be interesting. I'm teaching us how we use contemplative prayer in the 3 steps of problem solving, especially around money, which is something we all run into challenges around money every moment. So this can be really helpful today. So stick around. So behind this is fear. So when fear comes up, all of a sudden solutions get harder. We can't find them. Like Albert Einstein says, you cannot solve a problem with the same thinking that created the problem, because my mind is creating a problem, and I've created fear, and I can't solve it if I'm in that mind state. If I'm in that mindset, I cannot. It doesn't work. I don't work that way. So I need to move into a whole new mindset. Okay. So the first step. So let me tell you a story. So this morning I was preparing for a workshop I'm doing at 1:00 in one of my Facebook groups, and I had no problem getting the events established here on StreamYard. I do it every single day. But then I did something I don't do that often, and Facebook's always changing. I was trying to create the event on Facebook, and I couldn't figure out how to do it. I could not. And the more I looked, and then I finally Googled, how do you do this? And it was like the instructions were like it was so simple, but I was like, I'm not seeing what they're telling me to do. So I began to get mad and frustrated, angry with Facebook, angry with this, thinking this is blaming her. Oh, I went into fear. You see, and I couldn't solve it. So my intuition, my deeper wisdom of problem solving said this, went into this thing. It said something like this: Martin, let it go. Go take a shower. Put some space around this. You got to let go of this fear. You got to let go of all this. You're in fear. You're in a fear state, and I could not solve the problem. So I said, okay, I'm going to go take a shower. Before I go, I'm going to ask for help. Ego never wants to ask for help. It thinks it can fix anything. It gets frustrated when it can't, because it can't fix anything. Doesn't know how. Not by itself. So I said, before I go to the shower, I'm going to run off a short note to my virtual assistant and say, help. I can't figure out how to do this. I need your help. Can you show me how to do this? And then I let it go. And I went off. I said, doesn't matter. Doesn't happen, doesn't matter. But I got out of that fear, because I know eventually we will figure out how to create the event and we'll all happen. But when I was in that fear state, there was no way I was going to solve this very simple problem. So I had to let it go and ask for help. 2 important things the ego does not like to do. And once I did it, it's all fine. And my assistant's helping me with it, and that went away. So let me break that down. So first thing I had to say was, I'm the one that created the problem. The first step is always accepting your role for the creation of the problem. Who created the problem? Me. No one else is having this problem except me. I'm the only one having this problem. Now, sometimes there's a problem bigger than us. That might be, but then it's accepting our role. For example, if when we're in the role when we had President Trump as the president, and we were in a position saying those people elected him, and we're blaming those people for this current administration, we're not getting anywhere. But if we say, what was my role in creating what I perceive as a problem? Because I'm telling you, if you were a Republican and you were a Trump supporter, you didn't see a problem. It was my problem. Those of us who didn't like him, it's our problem. How do we participate in that? Well, I had a conversation with a black guy a couple weeks ago. It was brilliant. He said, you know what? I know what I did. I didn't vote. I'll never do that again. I helped create because I just didn't pay attention. I didn't think it mattered. So I didn't vote. That's how I created the problem. That was my, and once he began to accept the fact that he created the problem, the beauty of that is we now have the ability to solve it. We can't solve somebody else's problem. We can only solve our own. That's the beauty of this. But we first got to get out of the blame game and the other game and say, this is the problem that I created. I created that problem this morning when I couldn't do something, okay? Number one, accept your role in creating. Take ownership of it. Take responsibility for it. Okay? Not blame. It's not about blaming yourself and tagging. But say, you know what? I created this. I don't know, and I don't know how to solve it. And because I don't know how to solve it, which the ego hates, I've got to surrender it to something bigger than me. I've got to surrender it to that higher level of consciousness, infinite intelligence, in order for me to find the solution. I got to let it go, and maybe I got to ask for some help. We're not here alone. We're not alone. We can't do it ourselves. We need the love and support of others. I'll become here. So the first step is to own it. The second step is to let it go. Surrender it. I don't know how to fix this. And be honest. I don't know how to fix this. I don't know how to fix this computer. I've done everything it told me that I can't fix it, and I'm just angry. I gotta let it go. I let all this go and step away for a while, create some space. Then, once I let it go, once I begin to have the courage, whatever that fear is, all of a sudden some space comes. I get some space around my heart. I get some space I took the shower, I went to shave and move my mind into something else. Began to look at the things that I do have and really how a brilliant mind I do have and stuff like that. And I said, okay. And the third is to just be still and listen. Listen to that intuition. Listen to that divine spirit. That part of me I call Joy the Wise Woman. She'll show me the way. She'll show me a solution, but it may not be the solution my mind thinks is the right one. But it's a better solution because it solves a bigger problem. Let's go down. I'll go back to another story. Let's just say back in the day when my business was failing back in 2017, I created a successful financial planning business, and all of a sudden it was failing. And I was desperately trying to find money and trying to find resources and trying to put patches on it and try to do this. Should I go bankrupt? All these different external solutions, but none of them felt right. I was in so much fear of losing my business, I couldn't find any way to solve it. And it's like the more frustrated and the more I tried to solve it with fear, the bigger the problem got. Finally, my spiritual teacher said, Martin, walk your talk. Apply the spiritual principle of surrender to this and see what happens. Let it go. Do the truth. I let this go. I do not know how to fix this. I'm about to go bankrupt. I'm about to lose my house. My car's been repossessed. This is miserable. This is not how I expected to live my life at 64 years old, for God's sakes. And I let it go. And I surrendered it. And I asked for help from my spiritual teacher. And she said, this is what you're going to do. You're going to practice the art of surrender. She even gave me a book to read. I've read that book before, and I know you've read it before, but this time I want you to read it, and I want you to read it as if it's going to become the way you live. And it was. And that's what I teach, because the art of surrender is exactly when we surrender it, when we let it go, fall back into that higher, more loving, that infinite creative source within all of us will guide us to the next step and the solution. Every single time. Every single time. It works 100% of the time. It does. It's a universal law. It's a spiritual principle of wisdom. It works every single time. So what are those three principles? First one is to accept it, own your role in creating it. It's your problem. And once you own it, now you can't surrender something you don't own. I can't surrender your problem. It's not my problem. I don't, but if you come to me and say, I have a problem that I've created, I don't know how to solve it, I can love and support you and help you find an answer. That's a different conversation. But first, you've got to own, if you're telling me my business is failing because I've got stupid people working for me, then you're missing the point. Oh, and getting back to my story about my business, God never gave me the money. God gave me the courage to leave that toxic environment and go do this. You see, it may not come in the way I expected it to. He didn't save my old business that I wasn't happy in the first place. I didn't have to go through bankruptcy, but he said, you know what? You got the courage. Let go of all this. Let go of this business. It's not serving you. It's not serving me. It's not serving the planet. Do something else that you love to do. And that's what I do now. So there's always a solution. It may not happen exactly when and where, and it's certainly not going to happen the way your ego thinks it is. But it'll happen. It'll come from the heart. So, what is it again? Accept ownership. Surrender it, and then get still and listen and let God, let the universe do its thing through you. Through you. Hope that was helpful today. Now we're going to read a little bit. Now we're going to read a little bit from Richard Rohr that I think is beautiful. The name of this is called The 7 Pathways to Wisdom. And I know we're going to talk a little bit about what we call Cynthia Bourgeault is a wisdom teacher. She teaches the wisdom teachings of Jesus. Most people aren't even aware there are such a thing as the wisdom teachings of Jesus, because the early church sort of threw all that stuff out of the way to create some kind of male-dominated sort of infrastructure to control our lives, which most people kind of turned off by, quite frankly. And that's why people don't believe in religion and don't believe in God, because we got given all this nonsense. But when we cut through that, is this wonderful teacher. Her name is Cynthia Bourgeault, and if you'd like to know more about her, you can Google her. And I'm posting all the time, but we've got a wonderful book called The Wisdom Teachings of Jesus, and it just changed the way you see the world, because when you begin to understand Jesus was actually a teacher of non-dual consciousness, like Buddha, then all of the things he says have a whole different meaning to us. One of the best are the Beatitudes. Okay, but they have taken on a whole different meaning when you begin to understand that Jesus is not talking about doing good deeds and behaving ourselves so that we're good little boys and girls and we go to a place up in the sky called heaven when we're good when we die. That is not what Jesus was teaching. He was teaching a much more revolutionary, more advanced concept of energy than that. We call that energy today non-dual consciousness. And it has nothing to do with any of that nonsense that most of the 99% of the Christian church gives us. Some, not all. I mean, there are buckets within the. I mean, Richard Rohr is certainly, and also a teacher of that. And most mystics of all religions understand the wisdom teachings of Jesus or the wisdom teachings of Buddha. And we use that as guides to move us through the two energy fields of fear and love. So let's read about the 7 pathways to wisdom. Wisdom is clearly more than mere intelligence, knowledge of facts, or information. Wisdom is more synthesis than analysis, more paradoxical than linear, and more a dance than a march. In order to grow in wisdom, we need to move beyond cerebral, rational knowing. As wisdom teacher Cynthia Bourgeault puts it, wisdom is not knowing more, but knowing with more of you, knowing deeper. I'm going to read that one more time. Wisdom is not knowing more, but knowing more of you and knowing deeper, knowing a deeper part of you, a more central reality of wisdom within ourselves called a higher level of consciousness. Okay. I've created a list of 7 ways of knowing that together we can move us toward greater wisdom. And here are the first 4. Intellect. The lens that we most associate with knowing is intellectual knowing. It's the result of formal education, and it has to do with science, reason, logic, and what we call intelligence. Most of us are trained to think that is the only way of knowing or the superior way of knowing. Yet that isn't necessarily true. Seeing intellectual intelligence as the best or only way of knowing is actually a great limitation. Read that one more time. Seeing intellectual intelligence as the best or only way of knowing is actually a great limitation. Will. The second way of knowing is volitional knowing. It comes from making choices, commitments, and decisions, then sticking with them and experiencing them at different stages. Anyone who has made and then kept vows knows what I'm talking about. It's a knowing that comes from making choices and the very process of struggling with the choices. The knowing is a kind of cumulative knowing that emerges over time. The Franciscan scholar John Duns Scotus, from 1266 to 1308, felt that volitional knowing or will was higher or closer to love than intellectual knowing. The third, emotional. Great emotions are especially powerful teachers. Love, ecstasy, hatred, jealousy, fear, despair, anguish, each have their lessons. Even anger and rage are great teachers if we listen to them. They have so much power to reveal our deepest self to ourselves and to others, yet we tend to consider them negatively. Now that's what I do in shadow work. I look at those deep, negative, uncomfortable emotions to tell us the truth. That's what shadow work is. Yes, it is wise. Well, they call them wisdom teachings, and it's coming from one of the best wisdom teachers out there, the Reverend the Reverend Cynthia Bougeot. She's an Episcopalian priest, and she's just wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. So yes, so wise. Even anger and rage are great teachers if we listen to them. They have so much power. Excuse me. They have so much power to reveal our deepest self to ourselves and to others, yet we tend to consider them negatively. That's why shadow work is so hard, because people do not want to look at those dark parts of themselves they're so uncomfortable with, knowing those stories. But there's a lot of power in that if we're willing to go look at that and sit in the discomfort. That's what shadow work is, by the way. It's mining the gold in those dark places that make us feel uncomfortable. I would guess that people die and live much more for emotional knowing than they ever will for intellectual or rational knowing. To taste these emotions is to live in a new reality afterward with a new ability to connect. Like I've always said, the more comfortable we get with all of our emotions, the wider our life is, the wider we're able to, the bigger broadband, the wider the field of negotiation and navigation. If we live in this very narrow band between fear and love, afraid of these uncomfortable emotions, we stay in this very limited path throughout our lives. But as we begin to understand that these emotions on the negative side can be a lot to learn from, and we can begin to expand, because what we find is that when we expand the fear side, we expand the love side. So all of a sudden our universe of our bandwidth of life becomes a lot larger, and we're less afraid of all the things in the world we don't, because we have a bigger awareness of what's going on. To taste these emotions is to live in a new reality afterward with a new ability to connect. We can connect to a deeper part of ourselves, and we can even begin to trust that part of ourselves in a way we may never have been able to before, because we know that it's that deeper love, that deeper wisdom within ourselves, that abundance within us is going to guide us through times of scarcity. For example, senses. Bodily or sensory knowing comes through the senses. By touching, moving, smelling, seeing, hearing, breathing, tasting, and especially at a deep or unconscious level. Think about that for a second. Sometimes I will feel deep into fear, for example, or anger or shame. I learned this when I was in the dark night of the soul a few years ago, curled up in fetal position on my sofa, feeling sorry for myself. And my spiritual teacher said, Martin, I want you to do this. I want you just to turn off. I want you to totally feel the darkness. I want you to put on some dark music. I want you to put on your comfortable clothes. I want you to get on your sofa, and I want you just to give yourself a great pity party, and just don't think about it. I want you to feel it, and feel it deep. And it was in that deeper feeling that I had a breakthrough. That pressure of that deep, dark, depressing feeling, it gave me the breakthrough I needed to find the light in myself, to get out of the darkness, to finally let go of all I was clinging to in the past, so that I could move into a brighter, more loving future that I'm living today. So the question is, if you're in the darkness, begin to vision what the light will look like. What would your life look like if you weren't worried about anything? If you weren't living in fear? What does it feel like now when you're not living, when you're not in fear? We're all experiencing that today. I mean, I can say we've all changed from one way of being to another in the last year. I'm certainly not living in as much fear as I was a year ago. My heart's open. I live in a place of love and an appreciation and gratitude. And it's just because we've been through a dark night of the soul collectively. We've come out in a pretty good place, actually. Most of us. Some of us aren't. So, and some people aren't there yet. Some people are still suffering. Some people are still in a lot of pain. And what do? All of us that have come into the light, we love them more. We shine our light on them and bring them out of the darkness. So when you see people on television that are still stuck in anger and hatred and me, particularly in our politicians, just love them. Just love them. They're just stuck in the dark. They're not bad people. They're just stuck in ignorance. They don't have the wisdom that we've all discovered. They're stuck in ignorance and darkness. We've all been there. So we can use a little empathy and some compassion for these people who are still stuck in that darkness. I got off on a tangent. I'm going to start that. I'm going to read that one about senses again. It got me going. And then we're going to meditate. Bodily senses, bodily or sensory, knowing comes through the senses by touching, moving, smelling, seeing, hearing, breathing, tasting, and especially at a deep unconscious level. Becoming aware of our senses is a centered way, allows us to awaken, to listen, and to connect. That was the third stage of solving a problem, to listen and connect to that deeper, infinite intelligence within ourselves, that creative genius to help us. It allows us to know reality more deeply on our body's terms instead of our brain's terms. It's no surprise that Jesus touched most of the people he healed, because something very different is communicated and known through physical touch, in contrast with what is communicated through mere words. She says tomorrow she will continue to describe these 3 additional ways of knowing that can deepen our ability to know and love the world more fully as Jesus did. Nice, right? Very nice. Very nice. So let's meditate. Let me turn off put it on airplane mode, and let's meditate here. What we're going to do, we're going to meditate for 20 minutes. It's got with 4 interval bells. And the reason for the interval bells is to wake us up from maybe falling asleep. Whenever we fall asleep when we meditate, we get so relaxed and I get so quiet that all of a sudden we fall. So one way to prevent that is to sit up straight in your chair. And we want to be comfortable, but we want to be sitting up with our back straight. And we want to be sitting up in a place so that we're actually alive and sitting like a proud human being, a proud man or a proud woman that we are. And begin to just lengthen the spine and sit comfortably in your chair, but erect and alert and awake, because we're going to wake up the spirit. So let's get started. So raise your arms in there and wake up the spirit in your hands. Wake them up. Raise your arms. Wiggle your fingers, wiggle your toes. Feel that life force coursing through your veins. Feel the vibration. Allow the vibration of love to come through you and feel it in that magnificent body you have. Be proud of exactly the body you have, because that's the body you have. Just enjoy it. Be grateful for it. Be grateful for the fact that you can raise your hands if you can. Maybe you can't. Be grateful for what you can do. Everybody's different. Everybody's unique. So put your hands in your lap and put them somewhere comfortable. And just begin to breathe. A little technique, a little meditation technique I'll teach you I learned a long time ago and I forgot about it, so I thought I'd start teaching it to people because I use it all the time. Is that when we think, the back of our tongue vibrates. And one way to slow down the vibration is there's that bell, kind of wake us up and then allow the vibration to pull us deeper. So back to the tongue technique. How to relax your mouth and how to relax your tongue is take the tip of your tongue and gently rest it on the roof of your mouth just behind your front teeth, and then part your lips slightly and relax your tongue, relax your jaw. Now just breathe naturally. Begin to get into the rhythm of your natural breathing, the rising and the fall of your rib cage. And we're going to start with 3 real deep intentional breaths. So using your belly muscles, pull the breath deep, 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 deep inside you and create as much space as you can with your belly. Oh, and slowly just let it deflate like you would a balloon. Just let it all go. And as you let it go, let go of all your thoughts, all your worrying, all your opinions, all your judgments, all that work that your brilliant brain has been doing. Just say, take a holiday and let it go. Give it a smile. Give it a smile for all that work your brilliant brain's been doing all day. You're going to give it a rest for a little while. It's not going to like it. It doesn't like it. With what brains do, they like to think. But you're going to smile at it and say, thank you for all your thinking. Thank you for all your work. Thank you for all your worrying. But take a little holiday for a few minutes. And as you breathe in, consciously begin to think about the breath massaging your throat and the back of your tongue and getting it still. Deep into your belly, anchor it down, find as much space as you can, and anchor that breath deep, deep, deep within your body, deep within your belly. And just let it go. And as you let it go, let every worry, let every concern, let every thought, let everything just go with it. And let's just do one more. You don't have to over exaggerate it. Just sit and actually take your belly muscles and just pull the breath deep into your belly. Expand the belly. Slowly let it go and get still and be known. Be still and listen to the divine. There's that sweet wake-up bell to wake us up from our thinking, our worrying, our planning. Just let it go. And fall back into that sweet, sweet cloud of unknowing. Oh, that sweet wake up bell. Or it could be annoying to the ego. Just when it got all settled in on a plot or a problem or thinking it was so involved in. So just let it go and thank it. Let it go. Let it go and just imagine yourself floating back into a deeper, deeper spaciousness within you. Oh, there's that sweet bell one more time to wake us out of our thinking. Just let it go. Smile. Thank it. Thank that brilliant brain of yours. Wonderful, brilliant brain. And let it go and fall back into that anchor in your belly. Find yourself in that space you created when you first began. And there's our final bell. Thank you so much. Let's see what everybody. Oh, fantastic. I love that, Tanya. Me too. I like spending time with you, and I feel more calm, clear, and optimistic now too. So thank you. The reciprocity of love. Hello, James. So glad you could be here. I'm doing great. I'm doing fantastic. And I'm so grateful for you being here today with us for this meditation. And I hope you learned something about how you can apply some spiritual wisdom and some spiritual principles, and how you can put contemplation into action to make a difference in your lives and the lives of others. That's the point. You know, that's really my message, is to not just be contemplatives, but actually how do we put this contemplative practice into our daily lives so that we can make our lives better and make lives better for others. And it comes from learning the wisdom, learning the teachings, and doing the practice, and then putting the practice to work in our lives. So thank everyone for being with us today. And I just want to make you aware that for those of you who don't know me, I'm a prosperity mindset coach. and spiritual teacher. I work largely with gay, transgender, and bisexual men, entrepreneurs, and I teach something called the shadow work method to help them understand and help them figure out ways to use these principles to solve problems and create wealth in their businesses. So, and I've created a new space, a Facebook group specifically for that group, for us, for gay, transgender, and bisexual men entrepreneurs. And if you'd like to join us, I would love to have you. I'm going to be teaching a course over there in just a few minutes. I do a live workshop in that group every day. It's just specifically for us. And so if that's who you are, please join us. We'd love to have you. I will continue to work to a larger audience because I'm not exclusive. I love everybody. But that's one thing I'm doing now that I love doing, because I think shadow work is particularly sensitive, and we need our own space to be able to do that work. Like I think women need their space sometimes, and different people need their own, because we all come at this from a different place of stories and emotions and backgrounds. So we wanted to create a safe space specifically for us to do our shadow work. So if that's not you, don't be excited. We love you too. It's just that we need a place to do our work too, like you need for yours. So I think you'll understand that it's about opening our hearts to the world and to who we are and loving ourselves more deeply. Oh, Audrey, you're so welcome. Always great to have you here, and such a joy. And thank you so much for being with us. And I see it's getting close to the hour, and I need to jump. And you probably do too. Go out and have a wonderful rest of your day, and bring this wisdom, bring this big heart that we've just opened into the world, and make a difference. You got it. You got wonderful gifts to share. You got wonderful creative genius in there. Let it out. We've opened the door. Let it go. Be creative. Be loving. Be vulnerable. Be yourself. Have some fun today. May love and prosperity prevail.